So give me a moment, please. We will be live momentarily, and I'm checking the presenter's laptop, Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery, February 12th, 2021. Sound check. Sound check. Thank you for attending today. I think that should be good for sound check. We are now live, Chair.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery to order. Just a reminder, the City of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe to care and share for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. For today's meeting, our votes will be conducted by a show of hands of any member who is opposed to the recommendations. Before we begin, I'd also like to welcome Jeanette Smith, City Manager, who is the sponsor of the task force. Good morning, Jeanette. All right, we're going to move to the roll call. I will be announcing the names on the task force, and if you could just indicate, please, that you are present. Mayor Eisenberger.
I am president.
Yes, thank you. I'm president too. Councillor Nan.
Good morning, I'm present. Thank you.
Good morning. Councillor Danko.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Whitehead. Matt Afinick.
Present. Good morning.
Morning, Matt. Florencia Bernstein.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. Rondalyn Brown.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning. Kelly Duffin.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly. Aaron Dunham. Mark Elliker. Patty Hall.
Patty Hall is having some technical issues at the moment, and I am resending the invitation to her. Also, Mr. Chair, I have heard from Erin, and she obviously is not attending today's meeting, but she did send her regrets.
Great, thank you very much. Carrie Jarvie.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Terry Johns.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Lisa LaRocca.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Keenan Loomis.
Good morning.
Good morning. Brian Lubbers.
Good morning, I'm present.
Good morning, Brian. Anthony Marco.
Present.
Rob McCann.
Present.
Kim Martin.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Bob Monroe. Matteo Patricelli.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Kathy Puckering.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Ty Chaddock.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Drew Spolstra.
Good morning, present.
Good morning, Drew. Judy Travis. Henry Wagle.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Gay Yayatung.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gay. Thank you. We'll move to the approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have under communications item 4.3, which is correspondence from the Arts Advisory Commission respecting support for the recommendations of the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery that was approved by Council on February 10th, 2021, and that is to be received. We also have a staff presentation that will be shown, which is the report of the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery update.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a mover and a seconder on the motion to approve the agenda as amended? You can just show hands. Great, thank you very much. I see Councillor Nan and seconder. I see Rondalyn Brown. Thank you so much. We're just going to ask if there's, if anyone is opposed to this. If you're opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Just moving to the declarations of interest, task force members, are there any declarations of interest? You can either raise your hand or you can notify the clerk in the chat feature. I see any hands raised. Madam Clerk, are there any?
I see none as well, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you very much. We'll move along to the item 3 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes from November 26, 2020? Just show of hand to move and second. I see Matt, thank you very much. And I see Henry to second it, thank you very much. Is anyone opposed to approving the minutes? All right, that motion is carried as well. Thank you very much. Our next item is a package of items that have been ratified by council, and there are a number of items here. So we'll start with item 4.1, which is presentations and motions from the General Issues Committee meeting of December on December 9th, 2020, representing the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery. So, Carrie, did you want to speak to this item?
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that it is for the task force information, no actions required, and it is a copy of the presentation the Chair made to the December 9th, 2020 General Issues Committee.
Great, Carrie, thank you very much. Are there any questions on this item before we move to receive it? I'm just trying to cover off all the screens and make sure I don't see any hands.
Me neither, Mr. Chair. I see no one.
Okay. Then could I have a mover and a seconder to receive this item, please? I see Terry and I see Keenan. Thank you very much. Opposed, if any? Great, that is carried. Thank you so much. The next item is a package of correspondence sent on behalf of the City of Hamilton respecting economic recovery. And I would ask Carrie again to speak to that item.
Certainly. So the documents, again, are for the task force information. No action is required. It includes copies of the 6 motions that were presented at the December 9th GIC and later passed by council, and the follow-up correspondence that was sent from council to other levels of government is also copied for the task force information.
Thank you, Carrie. Are there any questions on item 4.2? I don't see any hands. Is there anything in the chat? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any questions coming up.
Okay, then could I please have a mover and a seconder to receive this item? I see Kelly and I see Keenan. Thank you so much. Opposed? Anybody opposed to receiving this? I see no hands. That's carried. Thank you very much. Item 4.3 is correspondence from the Arts Advisory Commission respecting support for the recommendations of the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery. Carrie, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. So at the last meeting of the Arts Advisory Committee, the committee members wanted to formally show their support for the work of the task force, and the attached correspondence was sent to council and is copied for the task force information.
Great, and we appreciate that support. Thank you very much. Are there any speakers to this item? Do I see Councillor Danko? Do I see your hand? Yes.
Thank you. And just further to this, the Arts Advisory Commission is also going to be striking a subcommittee to go through the recommendations from the task force to come up with any further recommendations to council. I see Lisa LaRocca. She's a member of the Arts Advisory Commission. Just wondering if she might want to expand on that a little bit. Sorry to put you on the spot, Lisa.
Lisa, did you choose to speak to this?
Yeah, absolutely. The Arts Advisory Commission support, as was said, the recommendations, and they have all reviewed the report for our last meeting. They did want some time, once again, to look over the specific recommendations and see what the Arts Advisory Commission could do to support the specific recommendations. So we will be, with that task force, looking at everything in more detail and seeing what we can do on our end to support or to take on one of the initiatives or to go to council with further recommendations on our end. But overall, there was great support for all the work done and recognition of how much work was put into this by the task force. So everybody really, really appreciated that.
Lisa, thank you very much for your comments. Would anybody else like to speak to this item? Seeing no one else, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive it, please? I see Florencia, thank you. And Kim Martin, thank you so much. Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you so much. Moving to item 5 on the agenda, there are no consent agenda items. Moving to item 6, the staff presentation. Norman Carey, I think you're going to lead us through that.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And as soon as Carol puts the presentation up, I can take us through that. But just to give you a bit of a briefing on it. So for today's presentation, Carrie and I are going to share with you what has transpired since our last meeting. We really haven't had a meeting since, I guess, officially, was it November or early December? And we just wanted to talk to you about what's happened since. And if we go to the next slide, Carol, we can talk about that at our first meeting, or at the December 9th council meeting. Council unanimously approved the Mayor's Task Force report, as well as the 6 motions that went along with the report. It was Ron gave a great presentation, and it was very, very well received by council. All told, if you add it up in the report, there are 103 recommendations. So we're going to give you a bit of an update on where we stand with many of those recommendations today. If we go to the next slide, we can talk about the 6 motions that were passed that day. They are contained within your package. All the details are there. The first that was spoken to was the COVID concierge service, which we'll probably go into a little more detail a bit later on in the meeting, but that was a recommendation that was put forward by several of the working groups in terms of a one-stop shop for businesses in terms of answering their COVID-related questions. And as we're getting very close from moving from lockdown to gray to red to orange, whatever it is, this concierge service should be launched next week. So we're very excited about that. Great partnership between the Chambers of Commerce as well as our Hamilton Business Center and the city. One of the motions was also to freeze our various fees at City Hall for licensing fees, trade license fees, taxi and personal transportation fees, film permit fees. All those fees were frozen at 2020 levels. So that motion went through. There was also a $10,000 one-time enhancement grant for each one of the BIAs. So all 13 BIAs, there was $130,000 that were allocated to the BIAs, $10,000 each as a one-time enhancement. There was a $25,000 budget increase or enhancement for Winterfest, and that was again a project for Winterfest to work in collaboration with the BIAs. We put forward a motion to explore the small business tax subclass, and city staff are currently working on that to determine whether or not a small business tax class can be established. We also put forward a support to extend the eligibility for the creative enterprise facilities property tax subclass, similar to what Toronto has. So that correspondence has been sent as well. Going on to the next slide. There were several advocacy pieces, and I'm not going to read them all. You can see them on the screen, but letters have been sent from the mayor's office to the Prime Minister as well as the Premier, advocating for all of these areas that we talked about during our deliberations as the task force. The motion was also put through to modify our existing cash and loop policy for parking, and also as well to use the building permit, asking for permission to use building permit reserve funds for affordable housing projects, which would be something that hasn't been ever been done, but we need to get that permission from the province to amend the Ontario Building Code Act to permit that to take place. And we also put forward the potential use of surety bonds as financial security for development projects. So these are the motions that were put forward. They were all very well received. by council, and they're all in various stages of process at this point in time. And I'm going to hand it over to Carrie to talk about some of the upcoming motions that we have.
All right, there's two that are in the works right now. The first is establishing fair wages for musicians. These are musicians that are hired for city-run or city-partnered events, and that motion will be considered at the February 17th General Issues Committee. And another motion is being drafted now, and it is regarding public internet access and connectivity infrastructure. It was out of several recommendations that came from the task force, and that is scheduled for mid Q2 to also be considered. So those six motions that Norm walked us through met 32 or a third of the task force recommendations on that December meeting. And all the advocacy correspondence is in your agenda package. But I want to highlight two of the new programs that have been formally launched. And the first is the Placemaking Grant Pilot Program that was launched on January 29th. And this program is funded by the Patrick J. McNally Foundation, which is a very wonderful partnership that has been established with that foundation. And the importance of placemaking and public space really came through in multiple recommendations from several of the working groups of the task force. And the public response to that program has been high, and we are looking forward to being able to implement the first grants this summer. Fingers crossed. The need for timely information by business also came through very strongly in the task force work. And we know that there's information needs on public health restrictions, funding programs, PPE, and lots more. And the concierge program that Norm mentioned is going to provide that COVID information to businesses, and it will launch next week. So stay tuned for more information on that. And this program has been developed and will be delivered in partnership with the local chambers of commerce. Now, many recommendations are still in the works, and we know that there is alignment with the work of the task force as well as with other city planning processes. And 17 of the recommendations have been referred to the Economic Development Action Plan and the Tourism Strategy, both are which are currently under development and will be finalized this year. 11 suggestions for new grant programs or grant streams within existing programs, recommendations for incentives and other funding will be reviewed as part of the 2022 municipal budget cycle. The balance of 42 recommendations are being reviewed by staff, across the corporation, but I want to stress that we're looking at them with an eye to seizing opportunity wherever possible. And lots of new opportunities have surfaced since the task force submitted its report to the General Issues Committee. For example, Tuesday's announcement that the Ford government remains committed to the promised $1 billion investment in Hamilton's transportation infrastructure, and the fact that they're calling on the federal government to support Hamilton's LRT was very welcome and is a direct tie to recommendation number 90. Also this week, the federal government announced the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative, which is a funding program that includes $31 million to create safe and vibrant public spaces, to improve mobility options, and lastly, to provide innovative digital solutions to connect people and improve health. Again, all direct ties to the task force recommendations. Also worth mentioning is the HSR on-demand transportation pilot in Waterdown, and again, a link to the task force recommendations. And all of these are good examples about how quickly opportunities appear and can be seized to further these good ideas and recommendations. In addition to the 103 recommendations developed by the working groups, the report also included 28 additional recommendations in support of the guiding principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion, climate change, and labor. And progress has been made to further many of these recommendations. And some highlights include the following. Council's advocacy efforts have addressed paid sick leave and transportation, for example, both which were identified as priorities under the guiding principles. Council has included affordable housing among its term of council priorities, again in total alignment. This coming Tuesday, the Audit, Finance and Administration Committee is going to consider a report on the Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center, which is recommending a new governance structure and an inaugural board of directors. The City Enrichment Fund is to undergo an EDI review. The workforce training and development, which are identified among the areas of focus for the upcoming ECDEV action plan. Continuing with a laundry list approach here, funding has been provided to establish a municipal home energy retrofit, or the HERO program. And again, that was a recommendation under the climate change. And the city continues to advocate for broadband. And Norm has already flagged the upcoming motion regarding the public internet access and connectivity infrastructure. So while there is lots still to do, the task force lens on these three areas has effectively focused attention on their importance to the city's recovery and to its ongoing resiliency. And there are certainly areas of alignment with the recommendations of the Just Recovery Report, the task force report, and the term of council priorities, such as housing, green infrastructure, transportation, and of course, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And at its meeting on January 20th, Council received the Just Recovery Report and referred it to the City Manager for review and a report back on the recommendations within it. And Council also noted the linkages with the task force report and the task force recommendations. And the staff review of the Just Recovery Report is underway. Norm, I'm going to throw it back to you.
And just as we wind up our presentation, we thought it was interesting to share just some of the unintended positive spin-offs that the task force has had in terms of even this entire working group. In terms of, we brought together a lot of groups that had never really talked to each other before or didn't know who to talk to before. So these networks have been established, and I'm seeing discussions going on, for instance, between some of the arts groups and some of the industry players, which is some of the stuff that I hadn't really seen before. There's certainly been broadened engagement, and I'll speak personally from an ECDEV perspective in terms of, and I'll be very blunt, and when we did our ECDEV strategy 5 years ago, the words EDI and climate change were probably not part of our vernacular back then. And it certainly has opened our eyes in terms of how we're communicating our messaging to various groups within the communities. And that's going to make for a better economic development action plan. So when we take together the work of this group, the Just Recovery, as well as the EDAP, and keeping in mind, it's still an economic development action plan, but there's certainly a greater understanding of some of the areas that we need to have focus on. So I really think the task force has really helped open our eyes to some really good broadened engagement here. And lastly, some of the partnerships that have developed, the BIAs and Winterfest, I don't believe that was as strong as it was in years past, if it even was there. But I'm just going to stop. There are several partnerships with all of you. I know that our office works with many of your organizations as well as Carrie's. But I do really want to applaud how the three chambers have all come together in the city to deliver on many of these initiatives, in particular the concierge service, which, as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about. And hopefully before the end of the call, maybe I can have our chamber partners actually talk a little bit about the concierge piece and how it was developed. So those are just some of the unintended. I guess these situations do bring people together, and I think this is really a good example of that.
So there's lots we've learned over the last few months, and there's still a lot we don't know. You know, we don't know, for example, how the variants are going to impact global health. We don't know when everyone will be vaccinated. We don't know what government supports are going to roll out, even in the next few weeks, let alone the next few months. And we don't know if and when things will ever return to normal. But we do know some of the concrete next steps. One, we will be sharing the findings of the latest business survey, and those findings will be informing both the tourism strategy and the active action plan format and priorities. We know that the active action plan, which we are frantically working on as we speak, will go to GIC at its April meeting, so in Q2. And this summer that we will be doing the tourism strategy consultations with local business and the tourism industry, and we will be bringing the tourism strategy to GIC in Q4. And we also know that we will continue to be advancing the very good work and good advice of the task force as we move forward. And that concludes our updates, and we are happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Just before we go to questions, I see, Jeanette, you're back on. Did you want to clarify an item?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jeanette,
we've
are you
lost
there?
Jeanette again.
Oh, we
Yeah, I
can't.
believe that the city manager is having technical difficulties
There.
again.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you
You
now.
can.
All right. It's a bit spotty. I may disappear on you again. So if you can't hear me, just hit your headset, Ron, and I'll know, because I can see you. I just can't hear when I.
No, you just froze again. All right, well, while Jeanette works through those technical difficulties, let me just make a comment before we go to questions. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to city staff and our elected officials for the work that's been done so far on the Mayor's Economic Task Force on Economic Recovery report and recommendations. So thank you for your work. Thank you for the progress that's been made to date. You know, obviously it was a very comprehensive report. There were a lot of recommendations, but it's great to see some progress already made. So thank you. Jeanette, are you back on?
Yes, I've turned off my video and I seem to be connected. So I'm assuming you heard nothing I said.
Correct.
Okay, good. Not the first, not the last. What I wanted to say is just to clarify on slide 6, where they spoke about the digital divide and that motion related to, thanks for pulling that up, Carol. One more. Right there, the public internet access and connectivity infrastructure, that actual motion has actually already been approved by council. And so the Q2 is when Cyrus Tirani will be reporting back to General Issues Committee. So it's already in the works.
That's great news. Is this federal funds that we get to access for this?
The motion itself, I'm just going to pull it up here. We're certainly doing a number of different advocacy issues, and we have a survey being done by the University of Guelph to assist us with data around connectivity. But the motion speaks to, just pop back again, that city staff be directed to work with HCE Telecom and partners to explore the feasibility of connectivity options to help address the digital divide and become a recognized leader in providing public internet access and connectivity infrastructure. So that's the wording of this specific motion, but there's a number of other activities around the survey by Guelph University to help with data and other advocacy initiatives underway.
Okay, great, thank you. Can we take down stop sharing the screen now so we can see everybody again? I have two speakers in the queue right now, so if you'd like to get in the queue, please do raise your hand. But let me start with Keenan and then Drew.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I too want to just add how impressed I am with just how much work has gone into all of the various items that were outlined in the report, and the speed with which that work has been done as well. And I thank Council for having so many motions ready to go on the day that this report was presented to them. So kudos all the way around to everybody, especially Norm and the rest of the city staff. It's really been very impressive. Specifically related to the COVID concierge, I do want to thank my team and the other chambers and the Economic Development Department and the Small Business Enterprise Center for all the work that's gone into that. The COVID concierge is there is a site now. It is behind it's password protected at this point in time as we finalize all of the details and work out some bugs and all of that. But we're pretty much ready to go. It'll be Hamilton COVID Concierge.ca. It's an enhanced version of the COVID resources that we created right after this pandemic landed in our laps. And so it's a 2.0 version. It's enhanced. It's a little bit more branded. It's cleaned up. There was a lot of information on the first website that won't make it to this one because it's out of date. So that is very nice. And most importantly, it has a phone number attached to it as well, so that any business out there can call up. There will be, I think, 4 options when they do get an answer, and they can go to choose their own adventure. There will be one of my staff manning one of the lines to get information on all the resources available from all 3 levels of government. There will be then 3 lines going to the city, one to the Small Business Enterprise Center, then another to licensing and bylaw, and then the other to public health. So among all of those groups, every single business should find an answer to any question that they have with regards to any of the regulations or supports or subsidies or anything out there to help them get through. So it's really quite an impressive effort. A lot of hours have gone into it, and I think that you will all be proud of the effort once you see it launched. And when is that, Norm? Do we have what is the kind of the key dates coming up?
Well, let's see what the announcement says today. I think we wanted to soft launch it next week, but if this thing comes a little faster than we think, it may be as early as Tuesday. So latest Thursday, but probably it should be. It would be great if we could have it actually running on Tuesday.
Yeah. So just a great collective effort that is indicative of, again, all the speed and effort that's gone into, and this is just one portion of the overall recommendations coming from the task force.
Sounds like a wonderful service. So how will small business know it exists? How does it get promoted?
We will, of course, promote through all of our channels collectively. I think we have a really big reach out there within the community. There will be as well through other social media like Facebook ad buys. What are some of the other plans, Norm? We're not going to do traditional media, correct?
There's a formal rollout plan, Ron, where we will be talking, getting this into the media, so like an earned media piece, but as well, really relying on the networks that have, like as Keenan alluded to, that are already firmly established, and hopefully this group as well, and getting it to your respective networks as well. So we'll have text, we'll have tweets that are ready to go as well. So just we do have a formal rollout plan. I don't have it here to share with you today, but it is, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be pressing it very hard to get the word out.
Great. Please do share it with all of us, and we can probably help with our networks as well. So thank you for that. Okay, also on the speakers list, then I have Drew, and then I have Anthony Marco. Drew?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and through you, I guess, to Norm. Great work on the progress on the report, and thanks for that information. I'm wondering what the process is, either as a group or individually, to elevate some of the other 103 recommendations that really haven't been touched on yet, or maybe need some more massaging to move ahead through council and get some support from that body.
So why don't I start this, and Carrie and Jeanette, feel free to jump in. So our priority right now in terms of is the Economic Development Action Plan and how we can integrate some of those pieces in there. But that's not saying that we're not looking at those other 47 that are currently, as we say, outstanding. But those are going to be part of our work plans and seeing how we can bring those forward when the opportunities exist. Like Carrie said, there are ones that are sort of, that are just happening, like in terms of the LRT piece, as well as the other one. Sorry, it just escapes me right now, Carrie. But those other recommendations will be coming forward. Carrie, any thoughts on how that might come further?
Yes, they're going to come through in different ways. Of course, the financial ones will be tied to the city's financial processes and will be considered as part of the 2022 budget process. The ones that are eligible for the brand new federal funding program, those are being reviewed by staff. I think there's a meeting on Tuesday to review in detail the guidelines of that new program and select the strongest projects that the city can submit to that program. Others are being looked at by staff in various departments and divisions, depending on where's the strongest linkages to existing work plans and services. And they will be moved forward as is appropriate and as opportunities arise.
Thank you. Drew, are you okay, or do you have a follow-up? Okay, next on the speakers list is Anthony, and then Terry Johns. Anthony?
Thanks, and I do want to thank staff for all the work that's been done on this. I know that oftentimes the direction of those 6 motions from council obviously gave some immediate direction as to what was going to be focused on right off the bat. I will say that there are some of the recommendations that are untouched, as Drew was commenting about, that I would have probably liked to have seen a bit more emphasis put on, but I appreciate that those may be coming. I'm wondering through the chair if it would be possible on an ongoing basis if we could have more of a trackable spreadsheet or document which would allow us to see what the ongoing progress of these motions would be. I appreciate the slideshow that we had today, but when it's presented anecdotally like that, it's sometimes hard to track. And I don't envy the person who has to put this together necessarily, but I do appreciate the fact that it would be nice to be able to scroll down to something and scroll sideways and see what procedural step we're on, if we are on a procedural step for any of these motions. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Ron. I'm jumping ahead of you. Thank you, Anthony, for that suggestion. Staff can certainly put together such a spreadsheet and have it available at the upcoming meeting of the task force.
Thank you for agreeing to that. That's a great suggestion, Anthony. Thank you. Terry?
Good morning, everyone. I've taken off my video because I as well am having some internet issues. Just through the chair to update my fellow task force members, we are already working hard on our item on the motion of surety bonds. This is very important to the West End home builders. I'm happy to report we already have city finance staff working on a report that we hope to be bringing forward shortly. And again, on the theme of thanking staff, very much appreciate their immediate action on this item. Thank you.
Terry, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this update, this presentation? Yes, Councillor Nan?
Thank you. Through you, Ron. I also just wanted to acknowledge one of the points that wasn't raised, but it's because so much of the work is integrating into the work plans of the divisions. Childcare was mentioned very clearly in our recommendations as a task force. And I know HR has been doing an incredible job for employees here in the city in terms of that flexibility for working parents to be able to manage some of the pieces. So I just wanted to see if City Manager Smith wanted to speak to that, because it is a significant way in which the city as an employer has been able to accommodate some of the recommendations, and maybe for the future document that's coming, we'd be able to have those kinds of details shared too, because some of the work gets carried and it doesn't get documented.
Can you hear me, Ron?
Yes, Jeanette. Yes, we can, Jeanette.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Nan. I'll speak to that particular question, then I want to add on to previous ones. Yeah, I mean, I think often as a city, one of our responsibilities is to be a model employer as much as possible about what we want to see other employers do. And certainly we've been very cognizant since the beginning of the pandemic that this isn't just the type of emergency staff are coming into work and doing and then going home to their normal lives. It's impacted everything around their lives. And a lot of our staff have school-age children or daycare-age children, and that's been impacted through the pandemic. So we certainly gave direction early on to all our management staff to use whatever flexibility they have within their type of work to give staff the flexibility to work split shifts, for lack of a better word. So they might go on and do some work. They may need to take some time off to deal with childcare issues and then come back online to finish. It's harder in some types of work situations when they're on call centers or in the field, but those leaders we've asked to work with HR to look at what we can do to be flexible. So that's certainly something we've done as a city. The issue in terms of how do we do ongoing tracking, even once the mandate of the task force is done, and certainly Carrie Brooks-Joyner and Norm and I were talking about that, how we do some regular reporting to council overall, so that there's still this live document coming forward that of course would be available to everybody publicly. The one thing I would ask is, as Councillor Nan mentioned, it is a bit complicated because it crosses over so many things, but I'll do my best as having the oversight for the corporation to try to pull in all the different pieces so we get a holistic view of how items are moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Would anybody else like to speak to this? Yes, Mayor Eisenberger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to see you all. Kind of a somber meeting today, but you know, the snow is lovely out there. We'll all get to get some exercise and clear off our drives. But I'm curious, Chair, if anyone has any updating information from your perspectives in your areas that you might want to share with the group. I think that's I think part of the exercise is to have some collaboration and exchange. So I wonder if there's an opportunity for anyone to provide any updates. I'm looking at Kathy Puckering particularly, maybe some airport update or something happening in agriculture potentially. What's the not-profit sector? How are you managing so far? What are the other unique challenges you're facing? So is there an opportunity for that, Mr. Chair?
Great, thank you very much. And I would like to hear that as well. Maybe if, with your permission, what we'll do is just accept the staff presentation as we move into other business, then maybe we could include a more fulsome update from people at that point, if people are good with that. So on this presentation, yes, Mr. Mayor.
I will move the receipt of the staff presentation.
Thank you so much. Could I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Ty. Anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And we have no discussion items, motions, or notice of motions. So we'll go to item 10 on the agenda, which is general information and other business. Why don't we start with the general information in terms of a general update from those who are interested in providing that. We would love to know, all of us I think would love to know, particularly if there's any green shoots and signs of life anywhere that you want to share, but also if you want to share any general news or updates. Kathy, did you want to say something about the airport?
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Fred. So where do you want me to start? I will, a quick update on passenger activity. I mean, everybody is probably aware of the government's reaction to travel. We are presently about 95% down in our traffic year over year, and the government obviously concerned both federally, provincially, and municipally on the health and safety of travelers and basically shutting down the industry. So we continue to manage the business prudently. We have about 4 flights a week that are happening right now compared to over 50 that we had pre-COVID. And it's really just moving people that need to travel essentially across the country domestically, just serving the Calgary market once a week and flying into Edmonton 3 times a week where you can connect into Abbotsford. We're working with all levels of government on just understanding where the government is and putting pressure on them to respond to the aviation industry for some type of financial support beyond what they're doing right now. And really the issue is what's going to happen on recovery, because as these losses continue to pile up, there will be pent-up demand. We will see likely the return of low-cost service flying domestically, and pent-up demand could stimulate the market significantly and be an opportunity for us. So we need Hamilton to be ready for when that happens, and we're hopeful that the June-July timeframe is when we might start seeing some positive impacts on travel. The government having their policies in place for testing, quarantines, closures of provincial or national borders relaxing, and just providing a general safe environment for people to travel where they feel safe that they're not going to contract the virus or spread the virus or run into, periods of 2-week isolation at a cost, which is preventing that from happening. So that's where we are there. When it comes to cargo, we're continuing with the same trend we saw last year. The movement of goods and trade is strong. We're up about 16% over the prior year for the month of January. And while we're still seeing that continued growth, the partners expanding, they're still very cautious about what the future could hold, because are some of these trends not permanent? Will people still be buying online, as they had in 2020? What's going to happen with workforce, labor, lost income, things of that nature that might cause the movement of goods to contract a little bit. But what you are seeing out there is airlines are actually cargo airlines are buying up aircraft, putting more freighters into their fleets, because there is the confidence that trend will continue. And the third item is really an economic development opportunity. Land around the airport outside of our boundary is becoming premium land, and you're seeing a lot of investment. Those cranes are in the air, job creation. But Hamilton is where it's at, and there's a lot more that is going to happen because of the fact we are in Canada's largest trade corridor, largest populated area. We're hearing really good feedback from our partners that the labor force in the Hamilton area, academic institutions such as Mohawk College, are really making Hamilton attractive. So we need to be ready for these developments. We need to engage and cooperate with the City of Hamilton and making sure that we have the processes in place that's going to accelerate this. Because if construction can't happen quickly, they might choose to be somewhere else. So working closely, collaboratively with Partnerships, Economic Development and Planning is what we're focusing on right now. And, how do we continue to create new jobs and continue to be an economic driver for the City of Hamilton? That's my report, my update, and happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Kathy, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to provide an update? It's voluntary at this point. Keenan?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on movement of one of the actions that were advised by the Manufacturing and Life Sciences Group, Group 2, which was comprised of Gay, Ty, and Henry. Among one of the recommendations is to establish an advanced manufacturing council. And I think Henry in particular, he's on our board, so we've had some conversations since the creation of this report, that through their efforts in gaining input from various players within manufacturing and life sciences, there was an obvious need to come together, and as well an outlet was required to be able to provide advice and just to advocate locally and beyond. I think Henry said that it was obvious that some of them did not feel heard. Hold on a second, baby. I just need 2 minutes. So I thought that was a really great item for us as a Chamber of Commerce to be able to. I have somebody that needs to go to the bathroom. And to avoid a mess, can I let somebody else go and I'll be right back, please? Thank you.
That sounds like a good call, Keenan, on your part. Wise. So why don't we call on Kelly Duffin, who has an update on the not-for-profit sector.
That's a hard act to follow. I'm going to turn off my video because I'm also having some connectivity issues. But trust you can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So a couple of things about the not-for-profit sector. This is a group that continues really on the front lines, whether it's healthcare, food, housing, mental health, in our case, employment services, other social services. So I would say that the increased contagion and potentially increased seriousness of the new variants is very concerning, because it's a group that a sector that is on the front lines and very inevitably engaged with people. So safety, the vaccines, concerns around reopening and the speed of that are very much on the sector's minds. We're also, as a sector, of course, reliant in many cases on fundraising and events. And I think many of us 9 months ago hoped that 2021 would give us opportunities to resume and look at those revenue streams, and that's not looking particularly promising. So revenues continue to be a challenge. In our case, so Goodwill, some of our revenues come from social services, as you will know, cafe, catering division, and thrift stores. And because curbside pickup for many reasons is not feasible in those environments, we were closed again, and on Christmas Eve laid off 50% of our staff. We're now recalling them and will be reopening on the 22nd, not the 16th. But that, of course, has been a hardship for them and for us. Also, as Goodwill, because of a formula change in eligibility for the wage subsidy and the rent subsidy programs, we're finding that despite a 65% revenue drop in January, we're actually not eligible for those subsidies. So that's a matter that we're taking up federally, as it is very problematic. And I would just say that I think I said this on the economic development consultation the other day, that I think we've all learned through this pandemic that not only is good health policy good economic policy, but good social policy is good economic policy. And so I think that's hopefully during this pre-budget season, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, there's an opportunity to continue to reflect the importance of the not-for-profit sector, social and health services in economic development. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for the update. Why don't we go back to the Father of the Year and ask Keenan to continue.
Made it just in time. Okay, so as I was saying, there is a particularly great opportunity for us to bring together folks in advanced manufacturing and in life sciences as well here. We know that we have a number of entities that could support such an effort: Mohawk College, McMaster Innovation Park, NGen, the other chambers, and ECDEV, of course, as well. So a really great group to bring together, like I said. I've phoned up Jay Myers, who is the CEO of NGen, who used to be the head of the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, just to see, first of all, whether they'd be interested in being involved, and whether they had any best practices in terms of other industry groups across the country or across North America that have made progress. Because obviously we don't want to get these people together for no reason, just to create make work. And so he provided me with a couple of examples. And so we have received board approval. I will continue to investigate best practices, but we were just spitballing on a few topics that we could work on as a council. They would include workforce and training, infrastructure, decarbonization, which is a big issue for heavy industry, especially here in Hamilton, and Industry 4.0 as well. And we do need, Jay recommended that we have an anchor company like Dofasco helping us bring together those folks. I found when Dofasco sends out the invitation, the rest of the industry folks here in town answer. And so we're not asking for resourcing or anything like that from Dofasco, but certainly as well, certainly to stand as an anchor company. And there's a possibility through FedDev that there might be some resourcing opportunities through that. So there will be more to come on that, but I just wanted to provide you an update.
Keenan, thank you for that update. That's great. Any other updates that anybody wants to provide? Gay?
So maybe this is just more specific to that. Keenan and Henry, I'd probably put you in touch with Darren Lawless, who's the Assistant VP Research at McMaster, because we are looking at and they have been doing some activity around the Golden Horseshoe Manufacturing Network. And I know that that was kind of a group that was trying to provide that kind of resource and education and workshops to bring those people together. So I think that kind of ties in with pieces of this. So it'd be good to kind of coordinate those efforts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay. Any other comments or updates that anybody wants to provide? Yes, Drew?
I've got a co-captain here too.
Let's do that.
So yeah, thanks. Since the mayor singled out agriculture, I'll throw something out there to try and help out. So I think in general, rural and farm businesses have been doing their best to try and adapt to what seems to be a new normal. I think some businesses haven't seen any change at all and continue on the way they always have been, but some have certainly been turned upside down and totally revamped their processes and are adapting to whatever is this new normal, and trying to get through COVID as best they can. So I know there's been some talk around farmers markets and things like that, but in a lot of ways, that opportunity, certainly in the rural area, has been sort of decimated since the start of COVID, with that lost marketing opportunity. So as we get into reopening, and if that happens, we'll certainly be looking for some support to try and help out that marketing opportunity for farmers across the area. There's been some recent funding announcements from OMAFRA for fairs and exhibitions, and that's been a positive announcement for our 3 rural fairs here across Hamilton. The challenge they're going through right now is certainly there's still a lot of unknown, and trying to plan for September events is difficult at this time. We just don't know what's going to happen, whether people are going to be vaccinated, and whether there'll be that opportunity to have our fall fairs this year or not. So that's kind of in limbo, and it's a kind of a waiting game there. Foreign labor is obviously a big concern to agriculture across the country and the province. And I'm certainly concerned about the new federal restrictions on, and we're working with a group called Farms Foreign Ag Services and Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association to get those workers here as safely and as quickly as possible, and make sure that they're available here going into the growing season to get crops planted and harvested as efficiently as possible and as safely as possible. Because we can't. There was a few deaths across the province last year with foreign workers, and certainly unfortunate and not something we want to see happen again. So we have been identified, I believe, by the province to be in the second phase of the vaccination rollout. So farm and food processing workers are hopefully covered under that. The last point was just on the City Enrichment Fund. Some concerns that have been raised to me, and that there was a lot of challenges, obviously, meeting goals of 2020 plans for the city enrichment dollars. And I'm not sure currently where that sits in terms of meeting the targets of the plan, and whether funding needs to be returned that maybe wasn't spent because of COVID reasons, or how that sits. So that was just a question that was brought to me. I thought I'd raise it here.
Drew, thank you. Any other updates that anybody wanted to provide?
Mr. Chair, I've taken note of Drew's question, and I'll follow up with the staff in that area. I don't have an answer for you, but I think it's certainly worthy of an answer. So I'll follow up on that. In terms of kind of COVID update, it is highly likely that we are going to be in a red zone come Tuesday, which opens up things a little bit. So based on the numbers, I think in Hamilton we're somewhere below 50 per 100,000, which kind of puts us squarely in the red zone. So I suspect that's will be the announcement the province will deliver for Hamilton. Other areas, not so much. Toronto, Peel, Brampton will probably stay in the gray zone, and others might go to green in the more outlying areas. So, you know what? It's going to be an ongoing journey through this year. Unfortunately, I really empathize with those that are trying to plan events because the uncertainty of that. I don't think anybody has an answer to that. So, given the amount of time and effort that goes into the fall fairs or fundraising efforts, their likelihood of having enough people vaccinated by September, I wouldn't put at a very, very high level. That's certainly higher, but the way things are going and the way the vaccine is vacillating, and the global crush for the demand for the vaccine, which we're all challenged with, I think is going to make 2020 a very challenging year as well. So I'd like to be much more hopeful, but I think we need to be realistic that major events, I would say it was probably going to be a challenge for everybody this year. Hopefully that's not the case. I mean, I don't foresee a great wave of vaccines coming this month. The next phase is continuing on with healthcare and retirement homes, and then we get to the second phase of the which involves a lot more people and a lot more demand, and we are ready, just so you know, with locations for mass vaccination sites and with the network of doctors and pharmacies that are going to be part of how we roll that out. So, and we're going to continue to have a mobile vaccination unit that can go to locations. You can imagine that in long-term care homes, those residents aren't easy to move, or long-term care homes, and even some retirement homes. So our mobile unit will continue to operate, and thankfully we have all of the long-term care homes vaccinated, staff and residents, and most of the residential or retirement homes. There's a few more high risk retirement homes that need to be done, but And second doses are going to those that have had the first dose, and then we really await the vaccine coming forward. So from a COVID perspective, that's as good an update as I can give at this point.
Thank you very much for that update. Last opportunity for anybody who wants to share sort of general information updates regarding their sectors. Kim Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to just share some information with respect to the Just Recovery Hamilton policy document that was discussed a little bit earlier. And that document came as a result of 11 nonprofit organizations that came together to have further discussion in terms of what just recovery could look like for the city. And I'd really encourage members of the task force to have a look at that. I know it's a bit of a lengthy document. There's 150 recommendations. And there are a number of recommendations that really intersect with the goals and objectives of the task force in terms of recommendations that we have come up with. But in addition, there are others there that I think could be integrated. And so one of the things that I'd like to suggest is that maybe some of those recommendations could also be tracked in terms of progress, because I do think that there are some that are already in progress and may have already been completed, just as Norm reported with the task force recommendations. And I think that there are others that are really some really quick and easy wins that we could be looking at in terms of the recovery process being even more equitable. And in particular, I think if we look at some of the recommendations around disability justice and mobility justice with respect to planning and with respect to pandemic planning, that those would be things that we could actually start looking at or at least monitoring, so that we can have that information to know what the progress is. So certainly I would echo everything that Kelly had also mentioned in terms of the sector of nonprofits, so I wouldn't repeat that, but I wanted just to bring that to the attention of the task force in terms of how we might integrate some of these other recommendations into our future direction.
Thank you, Kim. I don't know if anybody wanted to respond specifically to Kim's suggestion there. Yes, Councillor Nan.
Thank you, and through you, thank you, Kim, for raising that. My office has a student placement right now, and the student has been looking very closely at recovery for municipalities and has done a cross analysis already. Students of both of the Just Recovery report and the task force report. So I'd be happy to share that with staff and this body if they're interested. The scope of that is literally just lining up where the recommendations match in terms of topic areas. It doesn't point to the comment that Kim mentioned in terms of the areas that would be valuable for the task force to look at that aren't in our 103 recommendations as a task force. So I'll offer that and share it with the clerks to disseminate if folks are interested.
That would be terrific. Thank you so much. I see two more hands raised, so we'll go to Jeanette Smith first and then to Anthony Marco.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Ron? Jeanette here.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. I'm having quite the internet. Have been requested by Keith.
Sorry, you're a little choppy. Can you try again? Okay, Jeanette, we're gonna have to go to Anthony and put you on hold. We can't hear you, but if you have access to the chat, you could always add comments there for everyone as well as another option. Anthony?
Thanks. I just want to call attention to the fact that one of the things that we talked about with regards to recommendations that had gone forward through motions to different levels of government was talking about universal paid emergency sick leave. And there is a giant push right now at the provincial level to try and ensure that we have paid sick days. There is a bill that was tabled forward by the Ontario NDP, which has received support from the Ontario Green Party and the Ontario Liberal Party. It will be coming forward soon. And we are trying to, of course, encourage the Ford government to get behind this as well. We realize probably more than ever at this time that this is something that is necessary. It's being brought up across the country in different provinces, and I would encourage if you were to follow 15infairness.org, which is a group that advocates for a lot of workers' rights. They are having events. They're having car caravans around Toronto over the next couple of days, and they're asking people to participate in online virtual support actions with regards to this. I know that when we try to bring the labor lens to a lot of the discussions that we're having here, nothing hits home more for a lot of people that are employees of some of the sectors that we've talked about today than having access to those emergency paid sick days when necessary. So I would encourage people to do the research on that if they haven't done so already, and find ways to offer some support on that above and beyond what we've done through the motions and the letters that we've sent already. Thank you.
Anthony, thanks very much. Thank you for that. Jeanette, we're going to try once more with you to see if we can get your audio.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I've had a note from the city manager that she is having continued technical issues.
She's left?
She has left the meeting. She may try and come back into it.
Okay, thanks.
So we may want to move ahead.
Yeah, we will. We'll go to Mayor Eisenberger.
Thank you. So I can answer on behalf of Jeanette. So the Just Recovery, as was indicated earlier, is going to be part of her review and Economic Development's review. So whatever information, Councillor Nan, you have, I think would help facilitate that. You know what? I'll say this carefully, but every report, a certain amount of time and evaluation. So we don't need another report. I think we've got lots of coverage here in terms of issues that are coming forward as a result of the pandemic, and certainly we're taking them all seriously. And some of them will be doable. Some of them will be for other levels of government to enact. And I can certainly assure Anthony that Greater Toronto Hamilton mayors have met weekly, and paid sick days. And I'll nuance this, through the pandemic has been our focus. I mean, there's the broader issue of paid sick days on a longer term basis, and I understand that that's a desire for many to also get enacted. But through this pandemic, it is, in my view, critical. And the obvious challenge that we see is that many of the outbreaks that we're seeing are now in business and industry. And sadly, what we're seeing is that people are going to work sick. And, many of them are not wanting to lose their pay or their payday or those lost wages. So they're taking that chance. And obviously then the infection spreads like wildfire. So paid sick days through this pandemic has been the focus for the Greater Toronto Hamilton area mayors. We've raised that with both the Premier on an ongoing direct basis, as well as the Prime Minister. And unfortunately, to date, they haven't, neither one of them have moved on that. But they should, especially through this pandemic, at the very least. The longer term issue, that's a bigger, larger debate. I think that others can certainly weigh into, and we could eventually support. But the reality is that through this pandemic, it's been quite a problem, and certainly it would be helpful if the employer would be able to provide those sick days, and compensation could be provided by the federal provincial governments. That would go a long way to avoiding some of the spread that we're seeing in the industry.
Yeah. Thank you for those comments. Anthony, did you have another question? I see your hand still up. No? Okay. Any other questions or comments or updates on this? All right, let's move into the other business. Keenan, you had another business item, or did you cover it off?
I already covered it off.
You're good? Okay. Just let me check with Madam Clerk. Is there any other business that we were expecting to cover off here?
We have no other business, Mr. Chair.
No other business? Okay. So last call for any comments, or we'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Can I just thank everybody for your effort and your time on all of this. You know, it's very much appreciated. I think some good progress has been made already, and hang in there. It's going to be a challenging year, but we're going to get through it. And someone said, if and when, I think Carrie said, if and when we get back to normal, we're going to get back to normal. That's not an if, it's a when. We just don't know when that is. And so, you know, hang in there, folks. It's going to be challenging, but there's lots of supports rolling through, and certainly grateful for that. And whatever way we can help you, do let us know. So, Kelly, in terms of your challenges with the federal government, if I can be helpful from where I sit in any way, shape, or form, do let us know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm not sure what the normal will be when we get back there, but I think we're all looking forward to something that's outside of the pandemic, at least.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt for just a moment, I believe that City Manager Smith is on the telephone right now, and I think she wishes to speak.
Great.
Thanks, Angela. Can you hear me, Ron?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, please.
Through you, Ron. I just did want to finish the comment around the Just Recovery report, in that it was referred back to staff. It's got a lot of great information in it, and we are going through it. It crosses all areas of the corporation. There are some pieces that certainly, as Councillor Nan mentioned, are relevant to the recommendations from this task force. There's some that relate to some work on our term of council priorities. So that is happening right now. So thank you.
Thank you, and you'll be happy to know the mayor had your back on that one. So he capably filled in for you while you weren't on the call. All right. So just thank you, Councillor Danko, for making me smile. And your comment in the chat, that was great. Okay, last opportunity. Any comments anybody wants to make? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then to adjourn, please? Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Keenan. Any opposed? All right, we're done. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you again for all your effort and time today. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.